Now, my experience with the FX2 was not at all what I was expecting. As someone who owns both the FX3 and the A7Cii, things did not add up. But now hearing that there is more going on under the hood.
Cut two. Is it more hardware or more software or a little bit of both?
Oh, both. Yes.
Both, okay.
And just rehousing a recycled sensor, as we all presumed, it was only after I looked through the EVF myself did I get a grip on why I think this camera might be a sleeper hit. And now cut to current events. With the rising prices of most cameras due to tariffs, specifically Sony across the board, including the FX3 and the A7Cii, but not the FX2. And then also in the news, the rising temperatures of some of these new camera bodies, and more on all that later. But this FX2, Frankenstein's monster of these two, initially scoffed at, as was done in 2021 to the FX3, which admittedly was something I also completely wrote off as well when watching all the content surrounding it. And before CineGear, the voices in my head were scattered with so many varied perspectives, and all from people I respect, from Mr. Potato Jet, Armando, Kofi, and Patrick Tommaso, all convincing me of their truth. And this is my problem, not theirs. So I knew that I needed to form my own opinion on the FX2 after also forming the longest line I'd ever seen at Universal Studios backlot. And after finally snaking my way to Sony and getting to talk to Jay, who then became another voice in the mix, again, I needed to find my own thoughts on the matter and why it might be specifically targeted to someone like me and possibly you, but please don't take my word for it or theirs. So I weaved my way through the crowds and countless vendors peddling their wares at CineGear and fending off all the distractions while passing through Hill Valley from Back to the Future, along with the DeLorean, of course, and through seminars from famous cinematographers, and then around the swarms of other creators clicking about. And finally, after visiting one of my favorite booths, Viltrox, I just love them and couldn't resist, but I finally made it to the Sony booth, something I did on both days, as if I was visiting a puppy I'm considering fostering, to see if that first day wasn't a fluke. And likewise, on that first day, I forgot sunscreen, so this was my face overheating and not just a bad color grade.
Hey there! Let's talk about overheating. That's right, overheating.
And speaking of all the overheating issues surrounding Lumix's new releases, the S1 II and more specifically the S1R2, the camera's some coined FX3 killers, which I'm not bothered by, as I also presume it's likely a non-issue. Well, except when it is.
This camera is not great in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's got its struggles for sure.
But I'm not someone who looks to counter exaggerations with hyperbole, nor am I someone who is overly sensitive to overheating, as I was once a proud owner of the Sony ZV-E1 and now the Lumix S9. So I'm not a brand loyalist either, as I like all cameras for different reasons, but there is a reason my main client camera is this, the FX3, over this, and even considered picking up Canon C80 over a camera with a body designed more for photography or vlogging. But again, I loved my ZV-E1 and would often put a $20 fan on it and would run it in direct sunlight until the fan's battery died, but then so too would the camera. So still, I would recommend someone on a budget getting the FX30 before a full frame hybrid camera, because for many, even a 2% chance that a camera could overheat on a job is too big of a gamble to take. But now I may also recommend the FX2 in the same breath, as seeing it in the Sony booth made me rethink even owning both of these. But thankfully, like Armando, I was able to chat with Jay Song, the product manager, along with many other Sony reps who were very helpful, but it was only when I got my hands on the FX2 to take it for that proverbial walk in the park, which helped immensely. Yet when I got to see it next to its bigger, more famous peers, akin to how I feel at conventions like this and NAB, while other bigger, cooler creators around, while here I sit, this weird looking wannabe cinema camera next to these proper beasts like the Venice 2 and the Burano. But however grand they appeared from the periphery, and well acclaimed they are, and justly so, but to my surprise, their output or the quality of their image was remarkably similar. And after seeing Gene here and then hearing his interview with Sony's lead designer, I could tell something was different.
You're telling me the FX2 matches better than the A7 IV does?
Yes.
But it's the exact same sensor. So what do they tweak?
Is it more hardware or more software or a little bit of both?
Oh, both. Yes.
Both, okay.
Okay, so the FX2 is matching better to the FX3 than the A7 IV does.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Now, I have no idea why they're being so aloof and cagey about what they mean by hardware, and maybe it's some new proprietary thing that will be uncovered in future releases, but it's still a little bizarre. So other than the image matching the Cine line better, and not just through tuning or color science, but some other mysterious physical attribute, which fundamentally changes the camera, as did the EVF, which I will get to, but I was also most surprised by the user experience. The chassis itself is very different, or different enough that my muscle memory with the FX3 did not easily translate. First, physically the grip is a lot bigger and deeper, and then I'm not sure why they did that, and I've never had an issue. But maybe if you're putting on a PL adapter or something and your hand will have more clearance, or is it just a new FX body going forward and this is the first in the series? And then there's a whole new fan design which looks, well, a lot more fanny. And then the button layout, which took me a while to get accustomed to with their new home button, leading to the other big software shift here with the inclusion of the Big 6 menu. And I do like that Sony keeps refining and simplifying their menus. Oh, and speaking of tweaking, they changed the second base ISO in S-Log3 from 3200 to 4000, both of which I prefer using over FX3's 12,800 in most situations. And just to put this out there, I very rarely use FX3's 4K 60 or 120, and it is nice to have, but just for what I do, I don't need it that much. But I do get it if you do, because then sadly you're gonna have to pay more for it. But really, you get all of this for $2,700, the cheapest full-frame cinema camera for Sony, boasting that beautifully downsampled 7K image that now matches across the FX line, with equally as good dynamic range as anything else on the market. And sure, I could also hear Kofi saying, but for only $400 more, you could get a lot more with another camera. And he's not wrong. That Lumix S1 II is also packed, feature-rich, and without a doubt amazing, but I will at least rent it before I make up my mind on that one too. But then I also hear Patrick Tomaso say or allude to, yeah, but you get two cameras for the price of one, as in you get this brilliant full-frame FX2, but you also get something like an FX20, as not only in crop mode is this camera amazing and most rolling shutter issues clean up, but with clear image zoom, you are still getting 4K image. And then the hack that I've been using since the ZV-E1, and now also with the A7C II, because don't forget the FX2 has dynamic stabilization, Sony's best stabilization. And yes, I can then hear Armando's voice chiming in, it still doesn't hold a candle to Lumix's, and he's 100% correct. And of course, there's no open gate, but let's just table that for now. But with dynamic stabilization's 30% crop, I can use all of my APS-C lenses, but that also opens you up to using countless Super 35 cinema glass. So you can slap them on your FX2 or FX20, and with that 30% crop in 4K, it will cover almost all vignetting. But you can always use a zoom rocker in the front to punch it in an extra 5% if you want. Yeah, speaking of punching, is the EVF. Is it even usable, especially with that top handle on, or will that just knock you out? And this was my biggest worry and the most novel thing with this camera. And again, I watched Kofi's attempt to push his face into the EVF prior to seeing it for myself. So I asked Jay if he could put the XLR top handle on for me, and he did. And maybe because I have a peanut head that's rehousing this recycled sensor, but I had no issues at all and actually loved using the EVF. And obviously using the right eye will help alleviate getting a black eye. But it was nice to see that it also had complete clearance when pointed upward. But seeing all these new features for myself cleared up a lot of confusion and allowed me to see not if this camera was right for some other nerd, but if it was right for me, because often I'm shooting client work with a similar setup, an A camera and a B camera, and I'm constantly worried about the Sony A7Cii II overheating in those scenarios. And sure, the best B camera is another FX3, but not only is that a lot more expensive, it's also a lot more boring to have two of the same cameras. Plus, I do love photography, so then it becomes a proper hybrid camera to take with me on my travels as I do with the A7C II. But now I can bring that same casual camera that I took out to play with me also into work. So I'm grateful that I got my hands on the FX2 while also weighing others' opinions on the matter, at least those with reasonable concerns, complaints, or praise, and not the squeaky wheels that love to call everything trash or a dead-on arrival, which is their right too. And even if I find some of their hyperbolic retorts pretty silly, I also know kids are kids and often say the darndest things. And whatever happened to that show? Anyway, I might buy the FX2, but I recommend getting your hands on it first if you have any interest in it at all. And I'm thankful I did. So now I'm honestly considering selling both of these, as they have also gone up in value in the used market. So selling both of them for the FX2, and with that money saved, I'm sure I'll just put it securely away in the bank and not buy another camera except for the Fuji X-E5. But that's a story for another day. And I'm thankful for your attention, and I have a bunch more videos about videos like this on the way, so consider following along and subscribing. All right, thanks guys, bye.
A lot of times when you're buying a camera like this, you want it to just work.
Yeah.
Like the Sony FX3 works.
Yeah,
Works
that's
every single day, no matter what you do to it.
It's simplicity.
It's simplicity at its finest. It's not gonna give you all the features that you want, but it works every single day, which is super valuable.
Yep.
This camera doesn't do that.